Welcome to the Business of Government Hour TV, a video companion to our flagship radio program. I'm Michael Keegan, your host. Each week, government executives and thought leaders join me for informative, insightful, and in-depth conversation on improving government and its effectiveness. These individuals are truly changing the way government does business. What are the key strategic priorities for the FBI's Science and Technology branch? How does the FBI's Science and Technology branch share information? I'll explore these questions and so much more with its Executive Assistant Director, Chris Piehota. My co-host from IBM is CeCe DeCamp. Take a look and take a listen. Download the entire interview at Podcast One, iTunes, and at businessofgovernment.org. So, Chris, would you provide an overview of the history and mission of the FBI's Science and Technology branch? How does it support the overall mission of the Bureau?
Absolutely. The Science and Technology branch was formed shortly after the 9/11 incident. The FBI, going through a review of its operations and how it conducted business post 9/11, saw a requirement to consolidate all of its vast science and technology programs under a unified chain of command, so to speak, or a unified leadership model so that we could better integrate resources. The STB's mission is very simple. We enable and enhance operations and investigations, for our national security programs and our criminal investigative programs. So, if you're looking at what Science and Technology branch does, is we are a enterprise service provider of technological services and products where we try to enhance our ability to conduct investigations and operations.
That's wonderful. So, regarding your portfolio, the branch leadership and your responsibilities and duties, what are your, top three management challenges that you face? How have you sought to address those challenges?
Well, if you look, the challenges are very broad and varied, given the FBI's very broad and varied mission scope. But what I try to focus on is the rapidly moving pace of technology. What we find is technology is developing and deploying faster and faster, and it's challenging our ability to maintain pace and maintain a competitive edge. And if we can keep the competitive edge, it's a matter of how long we can maintain that competitive edge. We also look at integrating mission resources across the enterprise, and I'm talking about the FBI and then the FBI as part of the national security apparatus for the United States government, as well as the FBI as a partner and leader in the law enforcement community, not only domestically but internationally. And we look at ways where we can anticipate using technology to counter future threats. Basically, what I do on a day-to-day basis is I ask my people to identify and develop solutions for problems that don't really exist just yet. So a little bit of clairvoyance with the genius of the very, very skilled and very dedicated scientific cadre that we have.
With that, in your earlier comment to us about your roles and responsibility around strategic leadership for the branch, I want to get a sense of your leadership philosophy. Would you outline some of your key leadership principles and what makes an effective leader in your mind?
Well, my leadership philosophy is based upon two words: mutual support. Everything we do has to help other people be successful, and then we hope that they will help us be successful. Everything's about teamwork, and everything is about marshaling people and resources to accomplish objectives. And I know that it happens more gracefully sometimes than others. But what we try to make sure of is that we keep the mission in mind, and the mission of the FBI is, again, to uphold the Constitution and to protect American society. So all arguments at some point reach that discussion, and we all kind of put our different opinions aside and we protect people. That's what we do. As far as my approach on that, I take a three-layered approach. One is on an interpersonal level. I always ask of myself and then my fellow leaders is to be honest, be objective, and be considerate of others. And on an interpersonal level, that seems to get us good levels of success. I also, on an organizational level, I ask people to be accountability-based and then to be results-oriented. I don't think there's anything more unforgivable than misusing the time of our staff and of our people, and they work very hard, and to make sure that we are getting results for their hard work and their efforts. And we also, on a professional level, I ask people to be resilient because we have tough jobs. And I ask folks to be enthusiastic because our jobs are very important and people put trust and confidence in us, and to always lead by example. So hard to ask people to do things that we ourselves as leadership would not do. Mm-hmm. There are things that we don't want to do, but that doesn't matter. Right. So in my mind, an effective leader is someone who can do those things and do them at the right time for the right reasons.
So, Chris, the FBI is mobilizing a wide range of advanced scientific techniques and operational technologies to help counter terrorism and criminal threats. And where I want to go with this is, would you outline your strategic vision and key priorities for the science and technology branch?
Our current vision is to be the premier service provider for the FBI, for its operational and investigative needs, as well as for our intelligence partners and our law enforcement partners. And I know people will say, well, you're the only service provider for the FBI, but that's not true. Yeah. I mean, across the United States government, there are some exceptional organizations that have incredible abilities and resources. And if we can't provide what the FBI requires for mission success, then our operational and investigative components have to look to our partners. And sometimes that's appropriate. And sometimes we will actually promote them to look to our partners because we can't generate a capability, or maybe our capability isn't scalable enough for what is needed. So, but we try to be that primary and premier service provider. And, in some key areas right now that are very important to us in that vision would be the fields of biometrics and video analytics. And of course, our information technology and how we manage data and information.
You mentioned biometrics. What is a biometrics analysis, and how does it assist you in your work? Are there any innovations in this area that you'd like to share?
Absolutely. Biometrics is just another way that human beings interact. And we have two age-old questions that we ask about each other. First of all, who are you? Mm-hmm. And are you who you say you are? And we've tried to figure this out about each other for centuries, whether it was through secret handshakes, passcodes, different types of identifiers or authenticators. And as the world has matured and society has matured and technology has made concurrent maturation, our ability to authenticate each other has also changed. And biometrics is a way of the future, because what we found is we entered into more of a digital age. Biographic information is much more easily counterfeited. Where we used to carry documents, we had papers. Well, those documents and papers can now be counterfeited and copied with precision that you've never seen before. So we had to move to a different authentication scheme. And generally, authentication can be broken down into three areas. It's something you know, it's something you have, or something you are. And what we find is that we try to use combinations of those three areas, and biometrics, being the something you are, is the way of the future. It's the modalities of iris scans, fingerprints, DNA, those are the areas that people are most familiar with. And what we're trying to figure out is how to do this in a way that we are using technology to make it to where we can do this better, we can do it faster, and we can do it with less resources. But we also have to make sure that we're doing it in line with people's privacy, civil liberties, their constitutional rights. So there's an imperfect balance that we maintain on security and how we have to identify people, because I do believe that there are people who would continue to secrete their identity, to maybe misrepresent who they are for interests that don't align with the United States government or are not good for our communities. We also look at other more esoteric things for experimental reasons, such as walking gait analysis. How you walk. Everyone walks a little bit differently. Voice analysis. We also, people laugh at this one, but we look at the shape of their ears.
That is interesting.
Because the first thing a lot of folks do when they see a camera is they turn away, and we get a really good shot of their ears. And it doesn't work on the ladies as much because of the longer hairstyles for most of the ladies, but a lot of folks, we can get a good shot of their ears. And it may not be a perfect identifier, but we can use it to triangulate other identifiers to make a good identification match for an individual.
Yes. So What are the core capabilities of the STB's laboratory services? Would you tell us more about how STB engages in scientific analysis?
Yeah, the lab, as I said earlier, is our premier law enforcement laboratory. The FBI laboratory, it's looked to for leadership, and it's looked for its ability to help set standards and provide scientific approaches and protocols that the rest of the laboratories around the law enforcement community adopt and use. For biometrics, again, I go back to the biometric area. I mean, we do maintain the CODIS database, which is the national DNA database. And we do a lot of latent print work where we go and we extract fingerprints from crime scenes, or we extract latent prints from explosive devices. You'd be surprised how many times we get identification from latent prints from explosive devices around the world, your improvised explosive devices, because people put them together and they forget they don't wear gloves, and they think that the explosion will destroy their prints, where the prints are pretty persistent. We also do a lot of DNA casework, and the FBI's lab also does the forensic response we talked about, scientific response and analysis. The evidence response teams that we run, like I said, the CSI component, they deploy to certain sites. We just had multiple teams doing a landfill excavation in the Jacksonville area looking for a missing person. Unfortunately, we were unsuccessful, but they moved hundreds of tons of I would say refuse or landfill, and they do forensic analysis of that sort. We do the crime scene documentation, crime scene rescaling and rebuilding. They do models of crime scenes. One of their more impressive crime scene remodeling projects was the shooting in Aurora, Colorado. They have a scaled-down model of the theater. They can show you the trajectory of all rounds that were fired, and they can show you how things impacted everywhere. It's very impressive what they do. We do our firearms and tool marks, where we do our ballistics testing. And we also do counterterrorism forensic work when our partners with the Department of Defense or other law enforcement, when they collect documents and artifacts from, say, we're in war theater areas, they bring them back to us and we do analysis on those documents and materials to see if we can identify people and look for further investigative leads or predictive or preventative information. And again, I talked about our Terrorist Explosive Devices Analysis Center, which is, again, a government-wide service provider. We take in all kinds of improvised explosive device materials or the devices themselves. We deconstruct them. We look for the build signatures. We try to identify trends in bomb making, and we use that information to inform the community of bomb technicians and our explosive ordnance disposal partners to make sure that they understand the new trends in explosives work and that we can keep them informed as a safety issue as well.
Chris, you kind of gave us a hint at what the operational response capacity of the forensic lab is. I'd like to dig a little deeper. Could you tell us basically what kind of an event? How would the FBI forensic lab get involved, and what types of responses and what are they doing?
I'll give you a real quick example. Sure. The tragedy of the shooting in Las Vegas. Yeah. Any event that occurs of that magnitude in the nation, one, if not all three of the science and technology branch components will be engaged for direct investigative support, forensic work, field communications, and other type of technology-based activities. We will come in. We will do the digital forensic and information extraction from the devices that were found. That's our operational technology division. We will go and collect all of the evidence from the hotel rooms, which would be our laboratory division. We'll do the ballistics tests on all the weapons. We'll verify the shooting path. We will do all of the types of work to reconstruct that event. Our Criminal Justice Information Services division sets up virtual command posts via electronic channels that we can communicate with our state and local partners. We can deconflict efforts and share information for investigative leads to make sure there aren't any other activities that are maybe planned or haven't been executed yet, so we can be predictive and preventative. So that's just a very quick example. Also for our operational technology division, we do all of our video analytics. Mm-hmm. Most major events these days have a video component, whether it's from just regular surveillance video, security video, dash cameras, body cameras, or just the civilian population with their smartphones and their mobile devices. We're taking in video. And we take in a lot of good information, a lot of good lead data, and it's another way for us to get the public to help us develop that information. So that's just a very broad overview on how the divisions would respond.
Transitioning more to the future, would you give us a sense of some of the key trends and innovations within your area?
What we find right now is we are in a remarkable time when it comes to technology. And right now, across the United States government, no conversation regarding technology is complete without at least a reference to artificial intelligence or machine learning. And this information-based technology, it is still in an emergent state. It's still developmental in some areas, but we're finding remarkable promise across private sector and for certain government needs. What we find, though, is that it is still emergent in respect to how the law enforcement community would employ and use an artificial intelligence construct to conduct its business. What we're concerned about is how would we take a decision-making construct that could impact how people's privacy, civil liberties, and constitutional rights are addressed. And it's not people making decisions about other people. And what we're finding also is that there's some level of maybe you can call it lack of knowledge on how the AI construct actually makes decisions. And when we look at how law enforcement would use an AI construct, and I use that term AI construct because AI could mean a lot of different types of configurations, but how do we train it? How do we train an AI construct to make decisions? What information is it provided to draw its conclusions? What kind of algorithms are used and stacked and interacted with to come to a conclusion? And how to determine the best way to explain that in court if we try to use those decisions. Even if we use them for lead value where we conduct investigations and we were steered in a certain direction by an AI-based decision-making tool, how do you explain that in court when we have human beings involved? So these are some of the challenges we're looking at when it comes to machine learning and the application of it. Now, there are areas we will certainly benefit from an analytical perspective, but we're still struggling with the actual application of AI tools in the law enforcement environment. We're looking at 5G communication networks. 5G communication networks they're coming. The velocity and volume of data that will be moved will be unforeseen and unheard of in previous communication networks. We will have billions of Internet of Things devices. We'll be moving data in orders of magnitude more than we do now. There will be many opportunities for the smart buildings, smart cities, mesh communication networks where cars will communicate with each other as they move down the highway. A lot of different areas that we're looking at how law enforcement will interact with this technology. And not only that, but how will the criminal element or the national security adversary use this technology to advance their own initiatives. One last area that is well, there are many areas, but one last primary area is quantum computing. There's a lot of talk about quantum computing. Depending on various estimates, it may be about 10 years away from a field deployable quantum system. The fear of quantum computing right now is that quantum computing, as it differs from conventional computing, will be able to theoretically bypass or defeat all of our current encryption schemes. So people are now working on what they call quantum-resistant encryption schemes. Quantum encryption will become another problem because if we can quantum decrypt, we can quantum encrypt. So then how will you defeat quantum encryption? And it's one of our other challenges. Again, how do we access data? How do we collect data when it is quantum encrypted? But that is another horizon technology that we're looking at.
Be sure to join me next time on the Business of Government Hour TV for another informative, insightful, and in-depth conversation on improving government and its effectiveness. Until then, it's businessofgovernment.org.